Hello, BookTube. Who's up for a morning mail haul? A rainy Friday morning mail haul in Boston. The key being here that we should try to get our mail hauls under control because they have been gradually going longer and longer. As I digress and just chat with you, nattering over the back fence like two Donegal housewives, the key will be for me to get books that do not prompt squeals of glee or long digressions. That's going to be a little bit of a trouble because a lot of the books that I get I request. So I am already interested in them. But even so, we will try to get that under control so that these book haul videos aren't an hour long each. So we've got a bunch of packages here from the morning. Who knows what the rest of the day will bring. We'll start off with this first one. I don't know. Bean, are you interested in the mail? Yes? Yes. Silly me. Here you go. Oh. I had an email from a viewer who is brand new to the channel. She just found me yesterday. And she, like so many other people in the course of a year, she was a little startled when I held up a package and suddenly this thing came up from below to grab it. So those of you who are brand new to the channel, we are closing in, slowly but surely, on 2 milestones that look like they are going to be more or less simultaneous. 6,000 subscribers, which is absurd, and 2,000 videos, which is, if you think about it, equally absurd. So those of you who are new, this is my miniature schnauzer, Frida. She came to me over a year ago, and she is very young. She's not a little puppy anymore, are you? You're not a little puppy. But she's extremely energetic. I was told to expect this from terriers. She is my first terrier, and that was right. So she destroys my mail packages. Anyway, let's look. Okay. You remember that plan we had about me being less enthusiastic about the books I get in the mail? We're going to have to revise that plan. I don't think I have a pub sheet for this. Do I have a pub sheet for this? No. This is from the folks at the New York Review of Books Classics. The New York Review of Books, the great literary publication, makes a line of classics where they do highly selective reprints. The editorial board there they have to pick works or commission works really knows what they want, and they don't often like the things that I like, but I find it so invigorating to have a clear editorial stance, to have a literary stance involved in a reprint line, where you don't have anyone saying, well, this will be good for us to do. Instead, you have a whole room, I picture it as a whole room of people coming off their own lifetimes of reading and saying, this is a book I wish was still in print. That's incredibly healthy. And they've sent me a forthcoming book of theirs. This is Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman. This is a translation into English by Robert Chandler and Elizabeth Chandler. I believe this is the first English language translation. It is 1,000 pages long. And it is part of the same tapestry as his great 1,000-page novel, Life and Fate. The two, believe it or not, are actually one novel. Stalingrad, the events in this book take place before Life and Fate. And involve the same cast of characters. There are about 250 noticeable, distinguishable characters, but there's one main family that both books follow, and this is imagine your favorite author, and Let pick a phenomenally beloved and successful series. Let's say Hilary Mantel, her Thomas Cromwell novels. Okay? Picture those. You have Wolf Hall and you have Bring Up the Bodies. They're both brilliant. They both won the Man Booker Prize. And her third book is rumored to be on the horizon. she is not in the best of health, but she is not an author who will probably let that get in the way. So she is not one of those authors, like a few other people I could name, who have a book that has long been rumored but will not actually ever appear. I would be willing to bet that we will see her third book. The historical fiction for 2019 has been so strong, the mojo for historical fiction, that I'm almost tempted to think that it will appear later this year, that it will appear in 2019 as the gem of the crown jewel, so to speak, of historical fiction. But imagine that third book comes out. If there's any justice in the world, it will be great, and it will win the Man Booker, and she will have the only Man Booker Triple Crown. Imagine if you read that book, you're eagerly waiting for it, constantly refreshing Amazon to see if there's any hint, any new word. It comes out, you read it, you love it. And then a few years later, maybe after her death, you learn that she wrote 3 other Tudor-era novels, that she wrote an entirely separate trilogy. Maybe not about Cromwell, but let's say about Thomas More. In Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies, Thomas More is a horrible figure. He is not a saint. He's not a man for all seasons. He is a terrible, scheming hypocrite. What if, years later, after the Wolf Hall trilogy is finished, you find out that Hilary Mantel wrote a whole trilogy of books about Thomas More, and that she wrote him as the hero, and that him being a villain in the Cromwell books was a byproduct of Cromwell's perspective? Imagine how you would feel if you suddenly were told, well, yeah, there's 3 more long historical novels that's set in the Tudor era by Hilary Mantel, and we're going to be publishing them. Or, alternately, imagine, since the example is much more apropos, imagine that the literary world learned that Leo Tolstoy wrote a 3rd enormous book. He wrote War and Peace. He wrote Anna Karenina. Let's say he wrote something else. He wrote another enormous book. Let's say he wrote War and Peace, a gigantic 1,000-page novel about the Napoleonic wars with Russia. Then he writes Anna Karenina, a 900-page book about an unhappy family and an unhappy wife. And then let's say it turns out in 2020 we learned that he also wrote a 1,000-page historical epic about Ivan the Terrible. Every bit as brilliant. Went through 8 drafts, had his wife rewrite everything. The same 9 yards. A new Tolstoy book. That is what this is. That is exactly what this is. Life and Fate is a great novel. One of the greatest novels of the 20th century and one of the greatest Russian novels of all time. And here's another book. This is a prequel that, as far as I know, has never appeared in a complete English translation before. And I don't, when does this comes out in June. The entire A-list of the literary world is going to write about this. You might as well resign yourself now. Every single A-list literary critic, the New Yorker, the London Review of Books, the TLS, the New York Review of Books, the LA Review of Books, the New York Times more than once, you name it, everybody is going to write about this. All of those critics have the copy in their hands that I have right now. They're all getting to work on it. Because for them, they have lives and families and children and hobbies and whatnot. So they can't just dash off the reading of this thing as fast as I'm going to do. And when the time comes, in June, this is going to be written about everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. It's a literary event. And here it is, the first thing that I'm supposed to be cavalier about. So that plan didn't work too well. So this is Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman. So, all right. So we're gonna start with the blasé and indifferent approach with this next book, because we can't do it with the first one. So what is this next one? What's good, baby? Woo? Oh, come on, Frida. You're not willing to jump? It's just a second package, for Pete's sake. Ugh. Oh, well, she was willing to tear something off it, but she's not willing to get airborne. Let's see. Oh, fantastic. Okay. I didn't know this was coming. This is probably due any day, right? This is probably due any day now. Yeah, this is due any day now. This is the paperback of Ben Styles' The Marshall Plan, which we saw. I think we saw the advanced copy. I think we saw the finished copy on this channel. This is something we're going to have to get used to. So we're going to see the whole natural life cycle of a book if we keep doing this. If I don't stop doing mail hauls. Then we're going to see the whole natural life cycle of a book. We have now seen, if I remember correctly, we saw the advanced copy of this and I bloviated about the Marshall Plan. Then we saw the finished copy and I bloviated about the Marshall Plan. And now we have the paperback, and that leaves one more stage, which is a reprint down the line. If somebody decides to reprint this down the line. Since remainders are kind of going away, thanks to the online used book market, you don't see many stores that have lots and lots of remainders anymore. It used to be a big, thriving section of every retail bookstore. So the next installment here is for this to be reprinted somewhere down the line. I don't imagine that ever happening. There'll be new books on the Marshall Plan. But here it is in paperback. I wonder if I was blurbed. Let's see if I am blurbed. Paul Kennedy in the Wall Street Journal. That was a really good review. Neil Atchison, New York Review of Books. That was also a really good review, although it wasn't really a review. It didn't talk much about. Terry Hartle reviewed it for the Christian Science Monitor. Blurbs from USA Today, the Washington Times, Telegraph, John Lewis Gaddis, Kirkus Reviews, Alan Greenspan. Oh, but not me. All right, well, I am not blurbed, but that's okay. This is, as you can tell, just by looking at it, this is a big, new history of the Marshall Plan, which was astounding on its face and really deserves more books than it's had. And this comes out in a week, so you're going to be able to get a paperback of this if you were interested in it. And the hardcover was beyond your means. This one will be slightly less beyond your means. This will be a $20 paperback. All right, so that's good. That's a reprint. We've already seen it twice, so we can move right on. All right. Okay. Remember, I mentioned that Hilary Mantel's the third volume in her Thomas Cromwell series would be the crown jewel of historical fiction for 2019. That is partially true for the worth of the books. It's also partially true for the hoopla. There's an enormous amount of hoopla around the Cromwell books. There's been 2 movies, 2 TV series. Millions and millions of people who don't read historical fiction and don't know anything about Tudors have read and loved those books. So there's a large amount of hoopla involved. Not every historical novelist gets hoopla. Some of them work their whole lives, and they don't ever manage to do that. They don't ever manage to strike that note. Beryl Bainbridge is an example that comes to mind. Beryl Bainbridge wrote great historical fiction, but never had an Other Boleyn Girl or a Wolf Hall. And this author's the same way. She is utterly fantastic. In an objective sense, she is a crown jewel of historical fiction. And this is Mary Doria Russell. This is The Women of Copper Country. Her new historical novel coming out in August. Let's see here. In July 1913, 25-year-old Annie Clements has seen enough of the world to know that it was unfair. She spent her whole life in the copper mining towns of Calumet, Michigan, where men risked their lives for meager salaries and had barely enough to put food on the table and clothes on their backs. The women labor in the houses for the elite and send their husbands and sons deep underground each day, dreading the fateful call of the company man telling them their loved ones aren't coming home. When Annie decides to stand up for herself in the entire town of Calumet, nearly everyone believes she may have taken on one more than she is prepared to battle. In Annie's hands lie the miners' fortunes and their health, her husband's wrath over her growing independence, and her own reputation as she faces the threat of prison and discovers a forbidden love. On her fierce quest for justice, Annie will discover just how much she is willing to sacrifice for her own independence and the families of Calumet. This author wrote science fiction, but she's also written fantastic historical fiction. Doc about Doc Holliday, Epitaph, which was an absolutely fantastic novel of hers about the gunfight at the OK Corral, which is just amazing stuff, to the point where her science fiction didn't really do it for me, but her historical fiction has won me over completely, to the point where this is a huge event for me to know that there's a new book of hers coming out, because Doc and Epitaph are incredibly good. They're just amazingly good. Okay, so this comes out in early August. Fantastic. All right, so historical fiction. Pulling ahead by a nose. All right, let's see what we have next here. Bean stands at the ready. Can you actually see her? Can you see her when she does this? This is my little great white shark. All right. What have we got next here? Oh my. Oh goodness. Okay. All right. We've seen a lot of this kind of book. We're bound to see more. So this is by Robbie Sove, and it is Panic Attack young radicals in the age of Trump. Since the 2016 election, college campuses have erupted in violent protests, demands for safe spaces, and the silencing of views that activist groups find disagreeable. Who are the leaders behind these protests, and what do they want? In Panic Attack, libertarian journalist Robbie Sove answers these questions by profiling young radicals across the political spectrum. Millennial activism has risen to new heights in the age of Trump. Although Sove may not personally agree with their motivations and goals, he takes their ideas seriously, approaching his interviews with a mixture of respect and healthy skepticism. The result is a faithful cross-section of today's radical youth, which will appeal to libertarians, conservatives, central liberals, and anyone else who is alarmed by the trampling of free speech and due process in the name of social justice. Okay, all right. Okay. What were we just told? The author's allegedly even-handed approach to leftist radicals, to extreme leftist political activists, will appeal to libertarians, conservatives, centrist liberals, and anyone else who's alarmed by the trampling of free speech. Who's the person left out? Who's the person this will not appeal to? The subject of the book. It will not appeal to them. I wonder why. But I don't have to find out for now. This isn't until June, so I don't have to read this for a while. It'll be a difficult book for anyone to be neutral about. And probably unfairly, depending on how much work this author has put in. Robbie Sove is an associate editor at Reason.com. Okay, all right. His commentary on Rolling Stone's reporting on sexual assault at the University of Virginia won him a 2015 Southern California Journalism Award. He's a columnist for the Daily Beast. I just dealt with one of those. I just dealt with a columnist for the Daily Beast. Put it mildly, the end product of his long ratiocinations, the book that he wrote, did not pass muster. Makes me wonder about columnists for the Daily Beast. They're not high in my list right now. And his writing has appeared in the New York Times, New York Post, CNN, USA Today, and Newsweek. Okay, if he's an associate editor for something called Reason.com, I have one question. I want to know when the last time was, give me a calendar year, when Robbie Sove looked someone in the face and said, I was completely wrong about what I said. My guess is that this person has never said those words. Never. In his entire life. But I could be wrong. We shall see. I expect a flood of these kinds of books. Not only the kind... I am pretty sure that this book is going to... I don't know. I haven't read it. But the pub sheet gives me the strong impression that this is going to be one protracted exercise in owning the libs. And if so, it will irritate me because that doesn't get anybody anywhere. But we shall see. I will be, I admit, genuinely irritated if the back cover copy of a book says that the author is intentionally treating all of his interview subjects with respect, and then I read the book and he doesn't. That is not the kind of thing you want to pointedly lie about. Anyway, we shall see. We shall see. I'm not going to get pre-irritated any more than I already am. So we'll move on. We'll move on to this next book. What's that, baby? Oh. It's amazing how long she can stand on her hind legs. If she's sufficiently interested, she doesn't ever seem to need to come back down on the four legs. Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. This has got to be soon. Yeah, this is soon. It's right around the corner. This is the finished copy of Blake Harris's The History of the Future. Oculus, Facebook, and the revolution that swept virtual reality. Have any of you ever tried virtual reality? I'd love to know. Bookish people, probably not, but you never know. There might be some early adopters among you. And this is the author who wrote Console Wars, which I don't know. Never played a video game. Never found anything about them particularly interesting. Really don't like the hyperbolic claims about them that are made by their partisans. But I thought Console Wars was fantastic. So that's part of the reason why I was so interested in this book. Here, the author once again delivers a tech drama for the ages. this time taking readers behind the scenes of the larger-than-life true story of Oculus, the upstart virtual reality company founded in 2012 that less than 2 years later dazzled Mark Zuckerberg and was bought by Facebook for over $2 billion. Just once, I would like to see a startup company that is breaking new ground like this not sell out to Google or Amazon or Facebook. Just once, I would like to see that. It's not healthy that nobody does. And the impression I get from reading, what was it I read? Zucked? And I've read a bunch of other books on the subject. The impression I get is that slowly but surely, very subtly and behind the scenes, the 5 major tech companies made it actually impossible for you not to sell out. By hoarding the resources that you need to be a success. It's not healthy. But let's see here. The incredible underdog story begins with inventor Palmer Luckey, then just a 19-year-old dreamer living alone in a camper trailer in Long Beach, California. At the time, virtual reality, long hailed as the ultimate technology, and seen on Star Trek as so much technology is presaged, it was so costly and experimental that it was unattainable outside of a few research labs and military training facilities. But with the founding of Oculus and the belief that his tantalizing vision of the future could one day be more than science fiction, Luckey put everything he had into creating a device that would allow gamers like him to step into virtual worlds. Okay, so I have had the advanced copy of this for a while, and I haven't read it. And this is right around the corner, so this is this mail haul, of course, like so many of my mail hauls, will also double as a reading list, because I need to get to this right away. It's been way too long. Then we've got some cardboard. Got some cardboard for your diet? Need some roughage in your diet? First one is air packaged, so... Oh, there you go. Oh, no! Okay, all right. This is, we saw this before. This is The Last Book Party, by Karen Duquesne. This is, Lucinda Rosenfeld, the author of Class, calls it Cape Cod meets Fifth Avenue publishing world Bildungsroman. So it would be really great if someone in the New York publishing world could review this for me. That would be terrific. You can insert the name of that person here, if you know what I mean. But there's no reason for me to natter on about this book since I got it. This is actually a triple. I actually have 3 copies of this book now. So this comes out in hardcover in July. So we don't have to worry about that one. Let's move on so we can keep this thing from going to 40 minutes. All right. What have we? Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. All right. We're wobbling back and forth between fiction and nonfiction. It's vertiginous. This is also due any day now. Yeah, this comes out in early March. I don't know that we saw this in this channel already. I read it and loved it. I had an advanced copy of Bound Galley, and I read it and loved it. But I will gladly read it again. This is by Lynn Olson, and it is Madame Foucault's Secret War in a finished copy. The subtitle is The Daring Young Woman Who Led France's Largest Spy Network Against Hitler. In 1941, a 31-year-old Frenchwoman born to privilege and known for her beauty and glamour became leader of the Resistance Intelligence Organization, the only woman to serve as chef de resistance in France during the war. Strong-willed, independent, and a lifelong rebel against her country's conservative, patriarchal society. Marie-Madeleine Fourcade was temperamentally made for the job. Her group's name was Alliance, but the Gestapo dubbed it Noah's Ark because its agents used the names of animals for their aliases. The name Marie-Madeleine chose for herself was Hedgehog. Unthreatening in appearance, yet a tough little animal that, as a friend of hers put it, even a lion would hesitate to bite. And that friend had a great quote. That's, of course, a great quote. But the thing that jumps out at you about this book and you're reading, aside from the fact that, as that pub sheet makes clear, even in broad brushstrokes, this woman did not need to risk anything. She did not need to risk anything. She could have safely ridden out the war, either by fleeing the country in comfort or by staying in the country in comfort. She didn't need to do what she did. It's pure heroism. But in addition to that, the thing that jumps out at you at this book, when you see a historical book like this that is largely a profile of one person, often when you're digging into the nitty-gritties and, page 200 or 300 or whatnot, you start to see the paint chipping off. You start to see the feet of clay of the person involved. They're being celebrated. But you start to see glimpses here and there of maybe that they're also being romanticized. The famous book Unbroken by Lauren Hildebrand is a perfect example of that. And I thought that I was going to get this one, and it may have happened. It may just be a perfect job of romanticization. But one thing I noticed about this book is no matter when we meet Agent Hedgehog, she is always ready with a barbed, absolutely pitch-perfect comeback to anything that she encounters, from threats of explicit violence to implications of, coarse implications of sexism, like the type you'd expect to find in a woman doing a spy job in World War II. She's ready at all times. It's like she has some sort of scriptwriter who's just feeding her these great lines, but instead, that they occur to her on the spur of the moment. I never encountered her as anything less than an absolutely terrific character, even though it's all real. So I've already read this book. I will probably read it again this weekend anyway, just to enjoy it another time. I highly recommend it. It's coming out real soon, and I highly recommend it. I will, if I can, write about it. I would love to review it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that it's being reviewed. That it's going to be reviewed fairly widely by large periodicals. I don't think I'm doing it for any of them. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do it for my own small periodical. But anyway, let's move on. We are actually at the last one. So we're not quite 40 minutes yet. Provided this is not a new biography of Erasmus, we should be able to get out of here fairly under 40 minutes. Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's not a biography of Erasmus, but it's about as close as you can get. This is the finished copy of Barry Strauss's 10 Caesars, which comes out in March, of course. And I will be reviewing this for the Christian Science Monitor. And it has a blurb by Stephen Saylor, who did the Roma Sub Rosa series, the murder mystery set in ancient Rome. They're all really, really good. They're all really, really good novels. They're not all really, really good murder mysteries. I think he got bored with concocting murder mysteries. But let's see. I don't know if we saw this already on the channel or not. It was a region that welcomed new immigrants and allowed them to become citizens because its leaders knew the nation had to evolve or die. It's okay. So is one of the 10 Caesars AOC? It had a government that looked beyond the elite ruling class to find up-and-coming talent in other, poorer regions with varied cultural and religious backgrounds. And it was a nation whose leaders might have been macho, but they did not discount women. Who's the first name on that list there? From Augustus to Constantine, who's the first name on that list? Augustus is the first name on that list. Does Barry Strauss think that Livia was Augustus's first wife? Does he think she was his second wife? Does he think that Augustus ever divorced and remarried for personal reasons, emotional reasons? and if he didn't, if he divorced and remarried over and over and over again for political and economic reasons, does that sound like it? How was it? Did not discount women? This is the peril that you run when you try to sell a work of ancient history, a history of ancient times, by forcing it, contorting it to be somehow relevant to an age it never imagined. This is the peril that you run into. You run into the peril of making yourself seem ridiculous and making the book seem like less than what it is. You do not need to make ancient Rome into the progressive stack SJW America. You don't need, that's an insane thing to even want to do. Anyway, instead, in many cases, they valued their opinions, their negotiating skills, and their insights on how to rule deftly and confidently. Both the men named specifically on the cover of this book are recorded by dispassionate Roman historians as belting women in the face for daring to speak their opinions to them directly. Both these men, and I guarantee you most of the men that are in this book, but both the men in the subtitle of this book are recorded as belting women across the face for the crime of speaking their opinions. Where is this place? It certainly isn't ancient Rome, but nevertheless, the next line is the Roman Empire. In 10 Caesars, historian Barry Strauss takes readers on a grand tour of the empire in the centuries after Julius Caesar, showing us why it was so powerful for so long in a time of such dramatic change. And the implication there is that it was so powerful for the reasons hinted at in the previous paragraph, when really it was because of ruthless military might and an ever-expanding subclass of slaves. You can't trump that, can you? Behind a facade of sumptuous and extravagant rhetoric lay the heart of a pragmatist. That was the real Rome, writes Strauss. The real Rome is found less in the periodic sentences of Cicero or the polished prose of Publius Cornelius Tacitus than in Tiberius's giving up Germany without a backward glance, or in the Emperor Vespasian justifying a tax on public toilets with the observation, money has no smell. Okay. Let's just move on here. New blood and new gods. Tough choices and strategic retreats. In order to survive as an empire, the Romans were willing to do whatever it took. Tiberius Caesar had new blood. Really. Tiberius Caesar was a Claudian. What are we describing as new blood here? In Roman history, you have Romulus and you have Remus, and then about 10 minutes later, you have the first Claudian. During its almost 4 centuries of existence, the Roman Empire reached from modern-day Britain to Iraq, and gradually emperors came not only from the old families of the first century, but from men born in the provinces. That didn't happen gradually. That happened very discreetly. That was Trajan, who was born in Spain and became Emperor of Rome. The saying was, suddenly we now know that emperors can be made outside of Italy. It wasn't like somebody had a mother or a grandmother or a little trace of blood that they could do on Ancestry.com. It was that there were Italian Caesars until there wasn't one. But anyway, here, by the time of Constantine, the Roman Empire had changed so dramatically in geography, ethnicity, religion, and culture that it would have been virtually unrecognizable to Augustus. That is not true. That is not true. And also, what you mean is it expanded, and its governmental centers shifted. The Italy of Constantine would have been immediately recognizable to Augustus as his own Italy. Anyway, in the imperial era, Roman women, here we are with the women again. Jeez Louise. Mothers, wives, mistresses had substantial influence over the emperors, and Strauss profiles the most important of them, from Livia, Augustus's wife, 4th wife. Okay. 3rd that we know of, 4th almost certainly. But what we know about her influence on politics and the realm is the theorizing of male historians, and most notably a male novelist in the 20th century. So, the record of what she actually did. Anyway, who else? To Helena, Constantine's mother. Not going to mention Nero's mother. No. No. You mentioned had substantial influence. You're not going to mention Nero's mother. No. Okay. These changes and evolutions were critical for the empire to continue to thrive, and the wisest emperors knew this and facilitated it. Those who did not ignored it at their peril. Show me an example. Show me an example. Even one example will do just fine. That is not true. That is just not true. If you're going to write a long book highlighting the careers and the innovations of 10 Caesars, and this is the tack you're going to take, you're going to run into brick walls over and over again. Anyway, so much for a short video. The Roman Empire's legacy remains today in so many ways, from language and law to philosophy, architecture, and religion. Strauss examines this enduring heritage through the lives of 10 men who shaped it. Over the ages, they learned to maintain the family business, the government of an empire, by adapting when necessary and persevering no matter what the cost. Okay. All right. I wouldn't have thought it possible, even in 2019, that anyone would attempt a #MeToo history of the Roman emperors. And apparently, the pump sheet is right. The pump sheet could be wrong. The book could be doing something completely different. But if the pump sheet is right, then this is that attempt, and that will be painful. in the extreme. So who have we got here? Yeah, I'm sure you want to know who the 10 Caesars are, and then we'll stop. Number 1 is Augustus, the founder, he's called. Then number 2 is Tiberius, the tyrant. Okay. All right. Number 3 is Nero, the entertainer. So Tiberius is called the tyrant, but Nero is called the entertainer. Okay. Then Vespasian, the commoner. Trajan, the best prince. So number 5, the middle of the book, is Trajan, the first Spanish emperor, the person who oversaw the Roman Empire at its greatest geographical extent, and a person who who was who very cautiously kept his wife away from any kind of live wire of power, and who spent his life in a series of dalliances with teenage boys. Okay. Then the next one is Hadrian. You're going to do Trajan, you have to do Hadrian. Hadrian was Trajan's successor, spent his life in besotted by teenage boys, one in particular, and who intentionally shrank the empire. Trajan brought it to its greatest geographical extent, and then Hadrian, one of Hadrian's first decisions was to just abandon that and pull everything back to defensible barriers and rivers and whatnot. And he's called the Greek. He wasn't Greek, he was Spanish, but he was mocked in the Roman Senate. They called him Little Greekling because he'd studied extensively. He was more of a scholar than he was a statesman, certainly more than he was a soldier. And his extremely affected, pretentious pronunciation led a lot of people to mock him, even to his face, as being a pretentious popinjay. So, and the fact that Tiberius is called a tyrant, when that is the character assassination of one Roman historian, and the fact that Hadrian is called the Greek, when that was mockery made at one particular time in his career by one particular group of people, leads me to wonder whether or not the author is just going to go for the lowest hanging fruit in every one of these cases. I don't know. Who else have we got here? Marcus Aurelius is called the philosopher. Septimius Severus is called the African. So, not a little indelicate there, but then Diocletian is called the Great Divider. And Constantine is called the Christian. Okay. All right. So the sobriquets for one half of those 10 Caesars are wrong. Are factually wrong. So this is going to be a wild ride. I'm reviewing this, and I have the advanced copy, and I barely dipped my toe into it at all. So it looks like I'm going to have a rough ride. We shall see. It should certainly be a lot of fun. And that is it. That is our morning mail haul. I did not succeed in making a short mail haul video, so maybe I never will again. So anyway, we'll make a steep period, and then we'll wrap things up for now. But there'll be an endless amount more book of babbling. I honestly don't know why any of you are here. I know I'm not. I said I would not ask that question, but just look at this. Is a 40-minute video about books that haven't come out yet. Okay. No fairy lights. No makeup. No ring lights. No calls to action. I'm not asking you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'm not asking you to join my squad or buy my merch or support me on Patreon. Okay, I'm not going to blow a gasket about it. So we have 10. This was a really good mail haul. It's just, I'm disappointed in myself that it's gone so long. But we have 10 Caesars by Barry Strauss. Popular Roman history. As I've noted, we're not seeing as much of this as we did. It's shifted elsewhere. It used to be that a publishing year in the major 6 publishing houses in America, you'd have at least 10 books on Roman history of some kind or other. Big biography, military history, something like that. Now we hardly ever see them, so I'll take what I can get. Then Madame Foucault's Secret War, about a young, well-to-do, pretty woman who could have made nice with the Nazis or left the country and decided instead to ringlead resistance movement. And it's an incredible story. Just incredible. And it could be as incredible as the day is long and still fall flat if Lynn Olson didn't do it justice, and she does. The book is just amazing. Then The Book Party by Karen Duquesne. That is here again. I will hope not to get any more copies of The Book Party. Then The History of the Future, about Oculus and virtual reality. Panic Attack by a libertarian journalist who's gone onto campus to interview the libs and see what they think. Then The Women of Copper Country by Mary Doria Russell. Any book by her is cause for celebration. Glad to see it. Can't wait to get to it. Then The Marshall Plan in paperback. Nice. You can't see it on camera. It's a nice textured paperback. A good quality production. And Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman. From the New York Review of Books Press, the first English language translation. And that is our mail haul for the morning. we did not succeed in getting the mail haul under 40 minutes. I did not succeed, so I will try again next time with the afternoon's mail or whatever. Thank you, BookTube. Or maybe I should just start ending these videos with sorry, BookTube. I will be back.